Surgeons/doctors of Reddit, what's the dumbest thing patients have lied about? NSFW. Guy comes in, between 17 to 19 years old for pebble hits penis. Pretty odd. He says he was doing yard work when the tool knocked a pebble into his penis. He went to check it, and now it was making pus. Nurse clarified that he was wearing pants. Denies sexual history. He stands by that he got hit on his penis by a rock through his pants that made him produce pus. He had chlamydia. Guy says he was forced to do meth, or something similar, at a store. Came in because he thought he was dying. A fun bonus, a frequent flyer comes in for his stomach hurting from eating this chili he had, while continuing to eat said chili in the lobby. Edit, I have a few funny other stories that I'm just going to add for the fun of it. Woman comes in after doing crack and states now she feels sad. That's all we got. Older woman who OD'd on something says she thinks her son poisoned her who she hasn't had contact with in years. Old man with various infections, but his pubic hair was green. We still do not know why. Guy came in for vomiting on Thanksgiving because he ate too much but it was really tasty. No other complaints and felt fine now. Addict left AMA because he had to go to meth right now. He was in for other issues but had to leave immediately to do more meth. He eventually came back for treatment, thankfully. Minor comes in for poisoning. Turns out, she had food in the microwave, sprayed said food and microwave with roach poisoning, then ate said food and vomited. Now, comes into ER on Thursday, events happened Sunday, because she was having contractions. Edit for clarity lol, she was also 27 weeks pregnant. And eating roach poisoning, you? One dude lied about being paralyzed after a lumbar puncture. Get a call from nurse patient says he can't move legs following a lumbar puncture, spinal tap. I called the team that did the procedure and they assured me there was no indication of this sort of injury happening during the procedure but agreed with my plan to get an urgent MRI. I go to examine him and nurse says she thinks he moved one of his feet. Next thing I know he says he can actually move his legs again but they are feeling weird. Then this weird feeling turns into intense pain and he asks for intravenous narcotics, Dilaudid. I tell him no because this story makes no sense. By God it was a miracle I tell you when this man walked himself right out of the hospital after I refused the fourth narcotics. Also, the MRI was normal. I had a lady tell me she had no idea how she got a rash she had on her face. I left the room, gave report to the MD and when I walked back in with the doctor she looked at me and said I didn't think you'd be coming back in the room and then proceeded to confess that she'd been cheating on her husband and thought she had herpes. She did not have herpes. My little brother was a nurse for about a decade. He has said many times that people stick anything up their butts. From light bulbs to hairbrushes to a golf shoe. And at first it's hilarious. Then after a year or so it's not funny because you've seen way too many distended buttholes. Then after a decade or so it starts to get funny again because you think you've seen everything and then one day a 45-year-old man is driven to the hospital by his wife and he has a golf shoe up his ass and he told his wife that he and the boys were golfing and he slipped in the locker room and it got rammed up there completely disregarding the fact that the part of the shoe that is inside him is covered in Vaseline. Penis modification. The case was an elective above-the-waist surgery, and he denied piercings. However, when the nurse went to place the Foley she found the patient had modified his penis and it was split/bifurcated with multiple piercings to look like a cobra. The nurse did not know how to insert the Foley. The piercings also limited the ability to use electrocautery. In addition, he also embedded a metal implant inside his testicle that looked infected with a possible abscess. Cancelled case, called urology consult for infection/abscess evaluation. Patient says to me, I was outside gardening while naked and I slipped. That's how a massive potato ended up in my ass. Anybody want fries while he is waiting to get it removed? How did you get that stab wound in your abdomen? I put a knife on the kitchen counter and forgot it was there. Then I walked into it. Me, have you had anything to eat or drink today prior to your surgery? Patient no, with a half-eaten candy bar in front of them. Me, are you sure? Because if you have, you could vomit upon going to sleep and it could enter your lungs, causing you to die. Patient, then yes I have. I had half that candy bar. This one guy repeatedly used to come in saying he hadn't shit in 7 days. This would usually necessitate a rectal examination with a finger. That's why he kept saying it. Patient used to come in every time the new doctors rotated in, who wouldn't be wise to his tricks. One guy came in feigning unconsciousness. Did not respond to even the most painful of stimuli, some of these were pretty painful. Did not budge. We were talking amongst ourselves about intubating him. He then opened his eyes and said they did that last time, I didn't like it. Dad is a physician and has a million funny stories. He told me this one from a few decades ago. Had a patient come into the ER with a towel over his groin, covered in blood. Claimed he was cutting vegetables in his kitchen and the knife slipped. Dad takes a look and the guy is butchered down there. Had to call a urologist in the middle of the night to consult. Guy eventually confesses to trying to give himself a circumcision because he didn't want to pay the $200 it would have cost. Urologist was able to help save him, but it cost a hell of a lot more than $200 for emergency penis surgery. Had a friend who is a EMT driver tell me about a call she responded to where the guy was barely coherent or audible in his 911 call, but managed to get 2 pieces of information out perfectly, his address and the word stomach. When they arrived, the man was covered in a blanket, sweating profusely, though he looked like he hadn't moved in days. My friend said that she immediately observed that even with early signs of his skin showing jaundice symptoms, that his cheeks remained rosy red, and he avoided eye contact and answering any questions. The only words he would speak between groans were poison and stomach. My friend took a quick look around to see if there was any chemical bottles out but didn't see anything. Just as she was returning to the ambulance, she noticed that there was a large pot on the stove that had a low flame on it. She turned the range off and removed the lid of the pot and was startled to see a dozen naked Barbie dolls, all of which had their heads removed. When she informed the man that she had turned off the range, he became erratic and aggressive until he was dropped off at the ER. Later in the day, she ran into a friend that worked in radiology, who told her that the entire time the man only answered the word poison as to what he ingested. When they told him that they would need to x-ray him, his demeanor completely changed. Calmer, communicated clearer, but accepting that the truth was around the corner. X-ray results showed that he had ingested 18 Barbie doll heads, and were locked up in his stomach for nearly 2 weeks. He explained that he sterilized the Barbies in hot water, and that they were the newer plastic because the older material was caustic to internal organs. The surgeon apparently ended his conversation by asking him why he would ingest the Barbie doll heads. And the man replied, "Because I like the way it feels when I shit them out." Sexual history. Teenage girl came in for lower abdominal pain. We did the usual history and physical examination. She adamantly denied sexual contact, history of vaginal discharge, and refused pelvic examination. She looked like she was in severe pain, so a decision to operate was made. As she was being wheeled off to the operating room, she finally admitted to sexual contact and consented to pelvic exam, where we found a silicone cock ring with spikes. She had a pelvic infection and did not need a surgery, just some antibiotics. We're not asking questions to be nosy, we're asking because it's relevant. Nurse here. The absolute dumbest thing patients have said, and to be fair, this was the patient's parent, since I was in petty but still dumb AF and caused no end of grief trying to unspin it. I was rooming patients and I went to the full lobby and called the next one in by last name. They stand up and mom and dad bring the little girl back. I'm rooming them, take the vitals, review purpose of visit, make some adjustments to the chart, update their pharmacy and allergies, and go out and let the pediatrician know they are ready. The pediatrician goes into the room and come out like 3 minutes later and says, "That's not my patient, where is my patient?" I'm like, WTF? I go in and ask the parents, and no, in fact they were not the patient. I'm like, why did you say you were someone you were not? They simply said they didn't want to wait, so they just came back. We had to completely unspin all the changes to the chart and had to get legal involved to make sure there were no HIPAA violations, which fortunately, there weren't. I'm fascinated that people can collectively think, yeah, let's do this, no one will know. Like, how does that even play out in their minds?